Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Nonviolence International's YouTube channel. This is our Spotlight series where we talk with activists, scholars, and advocates leading the way in global action. My name is Rachel, and today I have the pleasure to interview world-renowned activist and fellow California girl, Jodie Evans. Jodie's the co-founder of CODEPINK, Women for Peace, co-editor of 2 books, and has been described as a truly heart-centered human being. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today, Jodie.
Thank you, Rachel. Lovely to be with you.
So during our interview, I just want to cover some important aspects of your activism. Of course, kind of this cause and effect of working in politics in the 90s, your role as a leader in large advocacy organizations, and how you reconnect to the roots of nonviolence. So let's jump right in. So along with Medea Benjamin, you co-founded CODEPINK. Why is it so important for women to be involved in peace work?
Well, CODEPINK was founded because Bush was frightening the American people using the color-coded alerts, orange, red, and yellow. And so we called CODEPINK for peace. And there were just women in the room. And why are it usually women that show up first to the fire, right? And it is because we are the moms, we are the caretakers, we are those that lose our sons to war and know the devastation it is to our communities. So it's not that women are better, it's just that our connectivity to place, to home, to family is much deeper and more developed. And so it's not that CODEPINK isn't full of amazing men, but it is the women that show up first. And that very first day, it was all women.
And, during my research, I found that you worked on Jerry Brown's presidential campaign in '92. And in effect, CODEPINK is the total opposite of that.
Oh, no. So very sorry. I was the campaign manager of that campaign and came up with the idea of a presidential campaign that had one issue. It was money out of politics. Because if you didn't get money out of politics, it didn't matter what you cared for, you would not get it. I unfortunately have been proven right. And it was a campaign that was run on $100 limit. And every morning I woke up to create a campaign that was different than anybody had ever seen in a presidential campaign. I broke every rule. I did it totally differently. It was run not from the top, it was from the bottom. And every state, the people who ran grassroots organizations in that state ran the campaign. So it was the people that cared about the issues that knew they were up against money that were part of that campaign. And and in the middle of the campaign, when it got really ugly and I saw how absolutely violent the Democratic Party was and those in power were, I shut it down and instead went to work in Watts with the gang members, because in that April was when the uprising of the Rodney King uprising happened. And I went and realized that yes, power is violent at the top, but where change happens is in our communities. And so I saw that clearly during the presidential campaign. I saw why we won in states. It's because where grassroots activism was the most rich and most vibrant. And so I went to my community and saw that there had been a war in my own city that I didn't know about, where 20,000 people had been murdered in 20 years. And nobody talked about it because it was the Black part of town. And it was working there that drove me to Washington to create CODEPINK. And that was because working with those gang members one day, it was like, well, all men are alike, right? Let's invite a governor and a billionaire and an actor and famous people, and let's have them with our gang members and let them see that men's issues are the same. And when we went around the room and everyone answered what father was, every single one of those gang members' dad had been at the war in Vietnam. So when I put myself on a plane to say no war, on the war in Iraq, when Bush was putting forth a resolution on an innocent country, Iraq, and saying, oh, maybe they have a gun, just like they do with the Black kids in my neighborhood, and they can shoot them because maybe they have a gun. It was just like that. Oh, maybe there's weapons of mass destruction on an innocent country that did nothing to the United States and had nothing to do with 9/11. So I would say that Jerry running that campaign had everything to do with the founding of CODEPINK. And in the same way as like that campaign was local, it was organized by very passionate, very engaged activism. And that's what CODEPINK is. It's the same. It's run locally. CODEPINK, the structure is just to serve local organizers with tools they need to connect them. And of course, to have the color pink that like swathes love across everything and disarms people, because at CODEPINK, we want to be disarming, which is, you know, what we're talking about is how do you be nonviolent? And that's with every breath. We can't be nonviolent as a stand unless we live that way our lives in our community and as activists. So definitely CODEPINK, our mission is to be disarming, and pink very much helps with that. People sometimes say, Brendan used to say, how does Jodie always get into this palace, you know, when he'd taken over the palace in Iraq? And it was because I would just wear pink, and it's so disarming. People just open the door for you. People will say to Medea, you know, about Medea, how did she get in to disrupt that? Pink is very disarming.
You know, I was looking through photos of protests that CODEPINK was at, and I saw color, and I saw smiling and hilarious and catchy slogans. Tanks, but no tanks was just, I wanted to be there. And so what does that joy and humor bring to collective activism?
Well, look, you know, if you're not dancing, it's not a revolution, right? So we always have to bring the party, but you have to throw a better party. I mean, you don't think that would be so hard since their party is violent. I mean, we live in a war economy. It's not just war. We literally live in a war economy. Our economy is violent. It is killing us, it's killing our communities, and it's killing the planet. And what we don't realize is that violence is our culture. And so we have to bring to our activism the culture of joy, the culture of connectivity, the culture of fun, the culture of love, you know, of like, what are we here for, but that we love each other. The thought, I mean, you know, what's absolutely insane is that people could actually think that sending weapons to Ukraine is a good thing. After 80% casualties in Korea from sending weapon after weapon after weapon, until Eisenhower cried at the loss and said, stop this. Anyway, stop this. Vietnam, the generals knew 10 years before sending more weapons would do nothing. They continued to ask Congress for it. They continued to murder young American soldiers, and they continued to murder millions of people in South Asia. So now, after we've spent $21 trillion in the last 20 years on the war on terror, unraveling the very fabric of the society of this country, killing millions of people, disrupting the Middle East, creating like a violence in the very hearts of everyone in our country. And they're sending more weapons to Ukraine. What do people not understand? That has to do with the culture we live in. We literally have been brainwashed, and part of our activism, I mean, at CODEPINK, we say we educate, inspire, and activate. We are an uneducated populist as the empire. We are dumb. As it says in Star Wars, empires are dumb, we're it, and we act with hubris, thinking we're smart. Everybody in the world knows we're really dumb. And then, you know, to inspire is to raise heart, to uplift, to bring light to. And there's just, we're all in a mass of lies and darkness and hate. And so we're, you know, we're there to raise the love, the interconnectivity. We're all connected, no matter what religion you are. That's the core, is that we're all connected. So where does violence come from? If, you know, and so then it's that we activate. Now, I have to say, I say to all the CODEPINKers, like, we're not getting in this war. We didn't start this war. But what we need to do is build enough of a movement that says, no, this is not okay, in the face of all those people that are making billions of dollars. We don't live in a democracy. You can't have what happened in the Supreme Court and what happened with Manchin this last week, and then say with a straight face that you live in a democracy, because that is a lie. But we live in a country where everyone in power lies to everyone all day, every day, where the media lies to you all day, every day. And then everybody's super busy. So they don't have time to stop and think. And not only that, our education system beats our intelligence out of us. It makes us cogs in a wheel. And at CODEPINK, we have 21 ways to divest ourselves from the war economy. And we practice those ways every day as a community, because the war economy makes us think that we're alienated instead of connected. It makes us think that there's scarcity instead of abundance on this planet that we live on. It makes us transactional instead of relational. There's so many things that are just the patterns of your life that you don't even know that you are serving a war economy with the patterns that you've been taught that you think you need to have to survive. So, you know, it takes a lot of work. And right now, 22 years, you know, after, well, 21 years after 9/11 almost, we have literally, like, the war on terror has been the war on the people to terrorize them. And I don't think people in the United States realize that they live on a peak level of anxiety, of terror, and that the system is crushing. So it's the right now, and it's like the least activism I've ever seen in my life. We used to have no problem getting 1 million people to show up in Washington, D.C. for issues. And you know what? We had way less organizations. Now we have something like 500, I don't know, like 1,000 times more organizations than we had in, say, the 70s and the 80s and the 90s. But mobilizing people to shut it down, no, the power is making us more uncomfortable than we are making the power. And the people with the money are running away with the bank. Do you know that every 20 hours a billionaire is made? And every 20 hours, 100 million people dive into poverty. So yeah, we're, you know, and it's been a concerted effort, and it's been on purpose. Your mind has been fried on purpose. I executive produced a film called The Brainwashing of My Dad, to expose how that brainwashing happens. But it's all of us. Mainstream media does not tell the truth. I tell everyone, please turn off mainstream media. You are being brainwashed. And yet, as a knee-jerk reaction, we go there to think that that's where the ground is, instead of that's where the ground is being taken out from under you. So we live in a pretty upside down world here. And you know, like, a lot of what we do is CODEPINK is our citizen diplomacy missions. And those are to come home and tell the stories of where the distortions that we have. I mean, first of all, we went to war in Iraq and nobody even knew where Iraq was. When I tell people that Iraq was the most educated country on the planet, they don't believe me until I can Google it and show it to them. Iraq was a country where everyone was fed. There was no one homeless. They had taken in the Palestinians. They took care of the widows and the orphans from the Iran-Iraq war. Everyone got as much education as they wanted. The money didn't go to the rich people, it went to the people. And they could have as much education as they wanted. People I met had 4 and 5 PhDs. They had traveled the world and been educated. Now all those people, like the Tower of Babel that took place in Iraq, have been spread across the world, because, you know, when we destroyed the country, it was a brain drain that is now spread across the world. How ironic that the Tower of Babel actually, like, happened. You know, I was producing a film about the women in Afghanistan before we decided to destroy Afghanistan. And people don't recognize that in the 1970s, women in Afghanistan were as many women in college as were men, and they were running around in miniskirts. But no, like, right after that, we decided to have a proxy war on Russia in Afghanistan and take down Russia in Afghanistan, which we're replaying in Ukraine. So ask a Ukrainian if they want to be like Afghanistan, but instead of warlords, they have fascists. But nobody in America wants to admit that we're like supporting fascist regimes in Ukraine. It's like people don't want to look at the ugly pictures of the country they live in. And instead, it's like, if you don't look at the truth, you can't be effective. So could we look at the truth? It can be heartbreaking. And yet it's like, once you know the truth, then you can move into real action. You can understand what it is you need to do with your life in the face of that. Reality, there is nothing better to stand on than reality, I can promise you. But we don't get a lot of that. So that's what we do at CODEPINK. And, you know, half of our work is cultivating local peace economies, that the work is local, no matter who you are, the work is local. You didn't start the Syria war, you're not going to end the Syria war. You did not start the war in Ukraine, you are not going to end the war in Ukraine. What you are going to do in the middle of what I call this tidal wave of global inequality, global climate change, $3 trillion worth of weapons sold each year, there is a tidal wave coming. The forest is dry. So if we look at this and we see, oh, I can see in the future, it is not pretty and nothing is happening to get in the way of it. Matter of fact, everyone's doubling down on oil on the fire. Then what you can do is cultivate your local peace economy. Cultivate, how are you going to take care of each other? How do you disconnect from the global system and create systems? Every city has only 3 days of food. How do you, I mean, our local peace economy folks have all got front porch gardens and they're feeding their whole community. How do you find out what mutual aid looks like and start practicing it now? Because it is necessary. Because if you're really honest and you look out at the world, there is nothing turning this boat around that's going off a cliff. And we see right now, the fires in North Africa and the fires in Europe, we had it last year in the United States. This is the new normal. Learn from the people in Paradise and, you know, where fires have happened. What did they do? What did they need? What do you need to be prepared for? Because no matter what happens, it's beautiful and it's fulfilling and it's heart-wrenching. I mean, we do work all day that doesn't nourish us, that like actually traumatizes us. And by having places where you've got your weekend dance circle and your Wednesday morning song circle, and in the meantime, you're sharing your free clothes and you're feeding, you know, those that are houseless in your community together, and you're coming up with solutions to immediate problems in your community, you'll be practicing what you need. And that's necessary. And it is also what gives you life. Life is happening right now, every breath. And we need to be cultivating a future. If we look out and we see what it looks like, then don't start cultivating a future. And every day, make it a daily diet to call your 2 senators and your member of Congress and make sure they know what matters to you, and just call them every day. That's your diet, because they're getting a lot of money from corporations to destroy your life. You need to at least have part of that's democracy. Well, voting is it's one day, right? That's your call that day, right? But you have to be a citizen every day. You know, that's what citizen democracy is, what democracy is. We've been sold this bill of goods. It's voting once a year on elections that have been manipulated by last election of $4 trillion. When an election costs $4 trillion, do you think you matter, or do you think the rich people matter? I mean, come on, people. That mansion is bought for so little money and gets to stop trillions of dollars of change that would save the planet. Please don't believe in democracy anymore. Local democracy, create local participatory democracy. That cesspool in Washington will be exposed at the cesspool it is, because you and all participating with you will know what actual democracy is, what it is actually look like to come together and solve problems. You know, we're not as separated as they want to sell us. They're trying to make us all afraid. They know when we're afraid and when there's crisis, they can steal more and more money from us. Don't let them.
I love this passion. I imagine your advocacy occupies much of your time when you're nourishing yourself during your role as a co-founder of CODEPINK. But I've also seen pictures of you walking with this beautiful retriever, and I heard you make pottery and you dance and you garden and you play harp. And so does this help you come back to your center?
Well, I think having our passions where we can create joy for ourselves and others is necessary for life. I mean, we're here to live. Here's the shocking thing for me. I'm here because so many people struggled for so long. When I think about what my life looks like and what my grandmother's life looked like, or my great-grandmother's life looked like, and then I look back, thousands of years, tens of thousands of years, and think what they did. And I'm like, people really cared about life, like they made life happen. Like that was some fierce shit. What the fuck are we doing? I mean, have we been so disconnected from ourselves that we forgot life was here to live? Life is juicy. It is like, it's just so, life is, just think about sex, that's the place where life starts. It's beautiful, it's outrageous, it's yummy, it's like, what are the things you do that just make you yummy and so happy to be alive? You owe life itself that every day. That's your gift back to life. That's the celebration of it, the awareness of it, the being in the essential yumminess of it. What are you here for otherwise? But to that, my dog Rumi is at my farm. About 12 years ago, I said, oh, global climate change, global inequality, wars, blah, 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 blah. I mean, the scientists say the war, it's going to be pretty messed up. So I went and found a piece of land on the convergence of two rivers so I would have food and water for everybody to have, and make it part of a community that it's a incubator space for young farmers who I found out they go to school. A lot of them are philosophers, and they come out of school and they go, oh my God, that's a mess. I'm not getting in that. And farming has been the only path that kind of takes you out of the war economy, so to speak, even though it's quite a violent profession and a lot of mental illness, because we don't take care of farmers. We don't care who's growing our food. And it's really quite a horrible place once I got in it. So I created a space where people could come and incubate their ideas, because just to enter farming, it takes a lot of money and a lot of equipment, and it's, you got to learn it. So it's kind of an incubator, educator space where young farmers have come in and figured out what they really wanted to do. And, we found out during COVID what's essential, right? What's essential is healthcare and food and education. So many of the farmers have gone on to do different things, like become healers and acupuncturists, or become permaculture specialists, or two have gone off to become teachers of elementary school, realizing, that at the core, our education system is broken. And yeah, when Congress voted us to war, I came home to LA and created with my partner, Dave Eggers, 826 LA, to serve those kids that qualify for school lunch, an education that they weren't getting in LAUSD, after school writing program that has, changed lives. Because that's the real peace work, like really changing systems where you live, that, it starts at the ground up. It starts with our education. It starts with how we eat. It starts with how we care for each other. If we're caring for each other, if we live in a place where we feel that we're connected to each other and that we could get through anything together, then we're calmer and healthier. And then we can always show up for, the uprising. We can, fly ourselves to Washington, D.C. and get in the face of power. But we've got to build. Like right now, people are just scared and they don't know what to do and they don't trust. And that has been created so that there isn't all these people that are willing to make power really uncomfortable. Right now, power is very comfortable. They're stealing shit so fast because they know there is nothing. It's like ice wall. There's no traction. I've never seen so little traction. I mean, I'm also the board chair of Rainforest Action Network, and we've been taking on the banks for a really long time, and they're squirming out, you know, as yes, they say, no, we're not going to loan. And then they find out another way to do it, or they send the money to another bank. We've got insurance companies insuring, you know, the destruction of indigenous lands for pipelines. Who are these people? Do they not have children? Do they not want a future? Who are these people? What have we created? The people will sow every day go against life. What does that mean? And so the only answer is that you choose not to do that. You're not going to change everybody in the world, but you, first of all, changing yourself is hard enough. We practice every day at CODEPINK and we fall back into our bad habits, and we're there to help each other with love and support. And, you know, all the systems in every country is an experiment, right? Everyone's experimenting. That has been happening for millennia, for 20,000, 100,000, 100 million years. You know, like, people have been coming together to figure out how do we live together. And for some reason in the United States, we've given up that. It's like I don't know even how to explain it. But you go to other countries. I mean, I was just in France and they were striking and they were getting what they needed, and it took everybody, and people appreciated that they were striking. They weren't angry at them. They were like, right, because what? We've got a month of vacation, and we've got a year of maternity leave, and we've got healthcare for all. They appreciate the fight because it's given them what they have. I mean, in Germany, my friends, they have 5 years of maternity leave, 5 years. And there's free childcare. Do you know what that does to your psyche and your soul and your spirit? I mean, that's what it is to be human. That's what it is to be cared for. That is what we're here to do. We are here to take care of each other. We have been doing that for thousands and thousands of years. What happened? That's the question we should be asking. And yes, violence is never the answer.
We asked what happened, but I'm going to ask you a what if. And what if children started to take a bite of that juicy, spicy, delicious life? What would that cause? What would that chain reaction be?
Well, you see, children are that way. They, you know, I have a grandma in my backyard taking care of her little one, and she's like, I'm sorry, there's so much noise. I'm like, you kidding? That's to remind us what it is to be free and adventurous and curious. Do you know that one of the things the war economy takes away from you is your curiosity and your creativity? So I think one of the problems is that we've had the curiosity, you know, fought out of us, and our creativity. Because I do come to moments with people and say, well, how do we solve this problem? And they don't even know. My other big worry is I say, what value do you live their life? And they ask me, what's a value? So, I mean, you know, we're lost on lots of ways. But where do you always see the uprising in any culture? It's the young people. It's the people in high school and college. And we see that, you know, in CODEPINK right now, we have something called our Peace Collective, which is a collective of 20-year-olds, and they are fierce and they are vibrant and they are writing every week. And, you know, they can nail it on every sentence. You know, they see it, they can nail it. Occupy was young people who found out they graduated from college in chains, and they were pissed. Why? Because they hadn't been bought into the system yet. I don't know where those people are now. You get bought in the system, you get co-opted by the system. Doesn't matter what gender you are. It doesn't matter what identity you are. It doesn't matter what color you are, what race you are, what religion you are. You are now owned by the war economy system, and you are violating everyone. I don't care what you look like. So we see that with Obama as president. I mean, I remember my South African friend said, oh, Black presidents can be as bad as white presidents, just you wait and see. And then here he had a Congress and a Senate where he could have changed the whole structure for the issues we need. We could have had universal health care. We could have had a lot of things. We could have had abortion rights codified. We don't even have a freaking ERA. I mean, how backward a country is this? And the fact that people think we're a progressive country when we don't have these rights, when we have a racist country. Not only is it racist, we see in what happens in our streets, but may I please tell you what it looks like to the rest of the world, the way we are behaving around Ukraine. Ukraine, a white country that we have been funding fascists in. We have just sent $40 billion there for weapons, $40 billion to take on Russia, which Biden has said he wants to get rid of Putin, using the Ukrainians. But guess what? In the last 20 years, we have sent bombs to bomb only people of color. And where the frickin' hell were all these people that are sending money to Ukraine? What do you think that looks like to the 6 billion people of color on the planet? What do you think it makes them feel? You don't think it makes them feel horrific and how racist we are? You don't think that's real to them because people are so dumb and hubris in the United States of America? They're so full of arrogance that this is the place to live. This is the country that fails at everything. But the hubris and arrogance is disgusting and embarrassing. But right now, a non-aligned movement is building globally in Africa and South America that is aligning against the white population in the world. And BRICS, which is countries of color, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, they've never been more powerful. And the United States spent billions of dollars winning over, doing coups in India and Brazil to take over that leadership so it could undermine BRICS. And instead, this war in Ukraine has totally realigned the power in the United States. We are also impoverishing people in North Africa. So I don't know, yeah, that's happening. Please do not be despondent. Please do not give up, because every day, each one of us creates the future. The future needs you. The future needs you. You can do something so beautiful locally. And that's where it's happening. Everything's moving locally. Look at abortion. What happened right away? 3 Western states are like, you can come here and have an abortion. We will fund it. We're not going to. If we watch what's happening, we got to model what's beautiful. And that's where I started on this. You got to throw a better party. It's just, you'd think it'd be easy because it's such an ugly party. So it is easy. Just throw a better party locally, bring your community together, find ways to create joy, and take care of those most affected by the war economy in your community.
Thank you to everyone for taking the time to watch my interview with Jodie. If you want to learn more about rockstar Jodie and her advocacy work and other great things she is a part of, please check out the link in the description. Thank you to everyone. And thank you so much, Jodie, for taking the time to have this important discussion with me. I look forward to seeing more of your work.
Thank you.
If you think these conversations are important and would like to see them continue, please consider supporting NVI and the work we do by subscribing to this YouTube channel, following us on Twitter and Facebook, and visiting our website. Please consider donating to our organization and checking out our nonviolent training archive and database linked in this description. Every little bit counts to help build a more just and nonviolent world.